Is there anything? I've gone live.
Good.
Waiting for us, I guess.
Well, Wayne's here. We're gonna call a meeting to order. Adopt the agenda as approved. Les,
I'll move the agenda be approved as presented.
all in favor? Carried. Adopt the minutes of the last meeting on the 27th. Larry? There's omissions there? Larry moved them, yep. Larry moved them already, yep. Everybody's all right? All in favor? Carried. Okay, delegations. I guess we'll start with, do we do introductions when we're on Zoom? Huh?
Yeah, introductions. Usually you let the administration take care of it. It works best.
Yeah, we can do. Oh, I'll call, whatever, doesn't matter. We got a delegation from the Battle River Research. So we're gonna, Cleo, you're by yourself, yeah?
Yes, Colin, he's not able to join me today.
Oh, Colin not here? Okay, I'm gonna introduce you to the people that are here, starting with Larry and going around the room and then back to Marlene and away we go. Go ahead.
Larry Clark, board member.
Any gender, board member?
Needs board member.
Chair.
Nixon, board member.
Spielberg, board member.
James Nyberg, board member. Quentin Beaumont, assistant director of operations. Eric Kushner, manager of information systems. Director of operations.
Andrew Brishik, Director of Municipal Services.
That's it. Okay, Cleo, you introduce yourself and give us your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Khalil. I'm a manager with Battle River Research Group. And this is my second presentation with the council. Last year we did a first presentation. So are you able to hear me clearly?
Yep. Give her.
Thank you. Excuse me, Ryan, are you going to run the presentation? Either you want me to share my screen?
Got her.
Okay, thank you.
John.
Oops. Is there? No, it's gone.
Thank you. So good morning, respected council. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak at the council meeting. So I'm going to talk about research and extension updates of what we have done in 2020. So I'm going to talk about what we have done past 3 years as well. Next slide, please. So respected council, I want to touch a little bit like what we do, because our role has been changing a lot because of the layoffs in Alberta government, and they're asking us to take some more responsibility since Agri-Food Centers has been shut down, and then so many other changes in the government as well. So basically, we wanted to identify the regional producers' needs and the challenges, and then at the same time, we wanted to collaborate with the specialists which are already laid off by the government, and we can use them as a resource and conduct some webinars and one-to-one consultation with them as well. And we want to translate the unbiased knowledge through the demonstrations and research projects in our area. And in the end of the day, it's going to help the economy in our region as well. So we are currently working on our strategic planning, and because of the changes in Alberta agriculture, and they create RDR as well. Next slide, please. So we are focusing on three things. First of all, we are, trying to be, looking for excellence. So we are trying to be recognized as an effective producer-driven association. And our second goal is to deliver relevant and applicable research in our area. And our third goal is to do a technology transfer knowledge in our area as well. So next slide, please. So I got wonderful people on my board. They are very helpful. They are guiding me every day. Colin Wager, he's our chair. Pretty much we talk every day, and he's my mentor. We got Steve Vincent. He's our vice president. He's very good with the technology and with the internet, and he's a tech guy, so he's also a very good resource. We also got Ingrid Badry. She's our secretary. We got Del Peterson. He's a heavy duty mechanic. He's helping us a lot, fixing with the equipments and all the maintenance. We got Melvin Thompson. He got a huge experience with the financials, so he helping us a lot with the finances. And we got Henry Mickelson, and so he got a lot of knowledge about the chemicals and the pesticides. We got Stan, Alisa, A. Lufsard, who's a seed grower. We got Rob Somerville. We got Brent. We also got Dave Grover from your county as well. So they're very wonderful people. They're helping me a lot. So next slide, please. So basically, we are trying to enhance our research capacity, and we wanted to improve our research equipments and tools. We are trying to buy a big sprayer and some other tools as well. And we wanted to hire some qualified people. Like I said, the people who led up by Alberta government. We wanted to use them as a resource for the producers in our area. And because of this COVID, we already bought some gadgets like new headphones, and we are working on our website, which is already up already. So our website has been improved. So we are trying to improve those things according to the current pandemic situation as well. Next slide, please. So you can look into this slide. You can look into the graph. In 2018, I started in 2018, August 2018. At that time, we had 18 projects. In 2019, we got 30. In 2020, we got 42 projects. And so far on our list for 2021, we are going to have 45 projects. This number, I'm pretty much sure is going to go up. I got a call from Alberta Wheat Commission. They wanted to have some more trials in our area. And they also got a call from Nutrient Egg Solution. They wanted to have a trial on durum in our area. Power Rich Fertilizers and Pork Fertilizers. I also got a call from them. So I'm hoping that the number is going to go up at least 50 research trials this year as well. We are very fortunate and very lucky that our 11 CAPE funded projects got approved. And these are the long-term trials. They're going to run from 2021 to 2023. So which is very good for our area. So we are progressing. Next slide, please. So our next goal is to work with the producers in our area on the farm to continue with on-farm research. It doesn't mean we are not going to stop our small plot research. We are trying to get into on-farm research as well at the same time. So this year we are planning to do some trials on corn silages. So we are trying to test about 12 to 15 different varieties. We will take some data and we will take some plant samples and we will send it to the lab to look into the some agronomic and nutritional quality of those forage varieties. And at the same time, we are doing another trial with the help of precision planters, and we are using a climate view platform where we're going to look into different seeding rates and plant to plant distances, and we're going to generate some data which will be very helpful for our producers in our area as well. And one of our hemp project also got approved. We are this year we are going to seed 3 different hemp varieties. One is dual purpose. Those varieties are good for fiber and seed purpose. Some hemp varieties, they are only for seed purpose, and some of them only for fiber. So basically, we're going to grow those 3 hemp varieties, and we will take some samples at the early stage, most probably during herbicide timing, like mid of June, and flowering stage, and at later stage when they are mature. And we will send those samples to the lab as well. So we will look into the forage quality of those hemp varieties. And this type of work has never been done in Alberta. So we are the first one who are taking this initiative. And that project is also funded by Canadian Agricultural Partnership as well. So this type of data will help CFIA if in future, if they have to use hemp as a silages and forages for cows, then they have some preliminary data from our region to like, you know, to give approval that, you know, if we can use it as a feed. So we are very fortunate to take this initiative in the province as well. Next slide, please. So because of pandemic, we are still continued our technology transfer efforts through social media. So we have 539 followers on Facebook and around 820 on our Twitter. So we conducted a lot of webinars, and those videos are available online. We have noticed a lot of traffic on our website. People are keep watching those webinars when they have time. And especially one of our video we had with Karen Shamid. She's working with Alberta beef producers, and that video watched by over 2,000 people, which is a big hit. Next slide, please. So in year 20, we collaborated with almost every college in the province. We are running a joint project with Lakeland College on barley, which is funded by Alberta Barley Commission. We are also working with the Olds College. They asked us to do some survey on nematodes. So we took some samples from wheat stubble and we sent it to them, and we are waiting on those results if they found any nematodes in our area. And we are also working with Lethbridge College. We got one project. We are testing some biostimulants on wheat, canola, and peas. And we are partnering with Farming Smarter down south and Sarda Ag Research up in the peas. So we are working with them collaboratively. And we also we are also part of provincial project. We are working with 12 different research associations. They call it Soil Health Project. And we took soil sampling around our area, all the way from New Norway to Anyang, Kester, so pretty much cover all our counties. And we sent those samples to Kera. And one of our articles was also published in Western Producers, so you can look into the picture as well. And we, so in 2020, we organized 7 webinars. We had one virtual field day, 1 crop walk, and we also facilitated so many consultations, like one-to-one consultations with Barry RMCO and Harry, who's working with Flagstaff County now, and we had a very good turnout as well. Next slide, please. So this is the overview of our webinars. So we had a webinar with Steve Kenyon, Gran Lastuca, Berry Arencio, and we had also a webinar with Alberta Wheat Commission, and they talk about farm cash, so how farmers they can utilize that farm cash. And we had speakers from Ag Canada. We had Dr. Rob and Dr. Brand Bears. They talked about ultra early wheat and regional variety trials in the province. We also had some industry speakers. We had a speaker from Crop Management Solutions. He talked about the spray applications as well. Next slide, please. So we published our annual report, and thanks, Councillor James, for liking our tweet. And we are also part of a provincial initiative. We are working with some other groups and trying to do some online events on soil health. So it's going to be a webinar series. And on March 10th, we are planning to have a caving clinic with Dr. Tamara. So she's going to talk about the caving clinic as well. Our annual general meeting is scheduled on March 15. In July, we are planning to have our field day and crop walk in the month of August. And every year we publish our newsletter. And we are continued with a specialist on call series where we gonna invite some speakers, and they can get a call from producers if they have any questions. It's gonna be a one-to-one consultation with them. And next slide, please. So this is the overview of our budget in 2022. So in 2018 and 19, we were losing money, like over $30,000 in 18 and 19. In 2020, we got lucky. We got about 11 CAPE projects. They're going to run from 21 to 23. We got about 16 industry projects with different cane companies and seed companies. So we generated about $60,000 from them. And so our operational grant is 127, which is funded by Alberta government. So this is the overview. It's only for 2022. It's only for 1 year. So you can see that this is the breakdown on your in the pie chart. So technically, when we access this CAPE grant, the municipal support is very important to us because those CAPE funding, they need 50% matching. So like if you guys are supporting us a little bit more, I know it's because of the economic situation we are, it's very tough, then we will be able to access more funding from the province. So you can see that, if you're going to help us a lot, we will be able to access and get some more funding from the province. So, please help us with the funding. So do you have next slide, please? So thanks a lot for helping us. So these are the sponsors and who are helping us. So do you have any question? Please ask.
I have a comment.
Open for questions. Wayne, go ahead.
Yes, have you ever tried to get funding from the Western Grains Research Foundation?
Yes, sir. Actually, last year we submitted a proposal and it was not approved. They did not give us any reason. They said it was a tough competition. And we assumed that maybe because we don't have a charity status, maybe that's why it was not approved. But after that, we found out a bunch of other groups in the province, like Gateway Research in Westlock, they got about $300,000. Kera and Owen, they got $266,000. Mera up north in Fort Vermilion, they also got some funding. So we talked to Keith Degenhardt. He's in our area. So yeah, we are trying to get that funding as well, but I'm not sure whether they're going to give us or not.
They got about $163 million. That's what they've got on the books. So I would certainly keep trying at it. That's money from producers, money from railroads, and money from the former Alberta Wheat Board too, or the Canadian Wheat Board. So it's all producer money that for research. So I think you should keep trying for sure.
Yeah, we are trying, sir.
Yes, good morning. I was just wondering how many projects you had in the county of Stetler in the last few years, and how many you got planned for 2021?
It's really a good question. Like we, with the board, we had a discussion when I started in 2018. Like past 4 or 5 years, like because of the money was not put into the equipments, so our equipments are falling apart. And only this year in 2020 we got lucky that we got those projects. So in 2019 we had trials in Botha in Stetler County, and we are moving those trials every year in different counties. Like when 2019 we had those trials in Botha, and in 2019 and 2020 we had trials in Viking, and this year we are going into Pentearth. So we are moving those trials, but currently we are trying to improve our equipments and our capacity. We already found 4 people around our area. There's more projects are coming in Stetler County. It's my promise to you. Like we had trials in 2019, but 2020 we went to Viking. But the way we are growing now, I'm hoping we're going to have some more, like we are working on our spray equipments. And if give me at least a year where we can improve our capacity, then we'll be able to have more trials in your county.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There's you got the silage trial that we're going to have here, maybe or whatever, right? Corn?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
This year. James?
It's James here. So I got a couple of questions for you. Do you know how many members, your farmer members, come from the county of Stetler? Do you guys keep a track? Is there some way to figure out where your membership is actually being determined from?
We have about over, I would say about 700 people on our list, because our membership is free, but I don't know how many from Stetler County, but I'll come up with the number for sure.
If you could get that to us, it would be awesome. Also, do you guys in your board structure, do you have a policy of how much money you contribute and how you get a vote for that? Like, we've been getting some conflicting information coming back that, ultimately this is because we've talked about funding, and we've had some economic trials ourselves, and our funding cuts are coming. And we were told that if we don't contribute the full 10,000, we don't get a vote at the board. Is that, do you guys have a policy that states that, or where does that lie in the situation, I guess?
To be honest with you, I don't think so. I haven't seen, such type of things on the policy. But, if we have to think regionally, they laid off so many people from Alberta government, they shut down the Ag Info Center. We are the only one who left in town now. So it's we are not in a situation now where we are doing a lot in Flagstaff, a little bit in other counties. Now our existence in our region, is the most important than, where you are in the county, to be honest with you. Having your support is the most important thing than anything else. we need a voice. We let the government know that we need those associations, and we have to continue those services in our area.
And I'll be honest, when I heard that, I was kind of taken aback, because at one time I used to sit on your guys' board, and we used to send 2 members, and we did send our financial support along the way. And I'll be honest, it feels like we were treated or slighted a little bit when we were told that if we don't put our full amount in, we don't get to play at the table. So it was I felt personally that was a slight. More a comment than anything. And then, are you sure your provincial funding is guaranteed? Is that something that you're guaranteed that's coming, or is this?
Yes. They already said that they already said that they're going to give us 2 million 2 years in a row, and they are still willing to put some. They wanted to increase and put some more funding into research associations because they wanted to give some more responsibilities to us. But we have to come up with a plan.
So, and is it Erica who is your overreaching board? Are they still around, or what's up with them?
Erica is still around, and then Farm Writer is still around, and like I said, like past 6-7 months when they created this RDR, there's a lot of changes in the government, and they are around.
Okay, so Erica, that wasn't what we were told, but that's okay. So Erica's still in play.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I'll keep liking your tweets. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Go ahead, Cleo. Any other questions for Cleo?
Morning, Cleo.
Ender?
Any gender here? In 2019, you had a plot on our property. It would be over towards Botha, but it got hailed out. Are you still looking for any more plots in the Stetler area? Would this one still work in with you?
Not this year, though. Maybe next year. But definitely we are looking for some producers who wanted to have trials on their land. So because we are trying to get into on-farm research, so we can write a proposal and we can send it to RDR. That's why, and then we can get the funding from the government. Yes, in future we're going to have some collaborative trials with the producers in Stetler County.
Thank you, Cleo.
Most welcome.
Cleo, this is Barry.
Hi.
Did you mention anything about the new arrangement that Alan Hall has made with the 4 specialists?
No. Do you want to mention it? Please go ahead.
Okay. Gentlemen, I hope you don't mind me interrupting here. What has happened is the Erica Group has received funding for a pilot project to employ Bill Chapman, Neil Watley, Grant Lestuka, and myself as technical support for the forage associations. So if a forage association member phones Khalil and Khalil gets the question, and he says, geez, I really don't know how to answer this one. It's better to go to Grant. So that he takes the farmer's number down, gives Grant a call, and then Grant returns the call to the producer. And as technical support, we get funding for the time we put in as a specialist from Erica directly, and we invoice them back for the time that we spend. So yes, the Ag Info Center is shut down, but at least Erica is trying to bring back some of that technical support for producers as they need it.
Very neat.
Just for clarification, so the funding comes from the province to Battle River Research, and then to you if you answer a call? Is that how the funding flows?
The funding flows directly from Alan Hall and the Erica head office through a grant through the Canadian Ag Priorities program. And it's roughly $200,000 for the 2 years. So if a farmer calls in and talks to me for 15 minutes, I write that down on a spreadsheet, and at the end of the month, I send an invoice into Allen Hall. So it doesn't impact the budgets for the local associations. This is a different pot of money.
Any other questions? Or Les?
Yeah, Les Stuhlberg again. One more question for the manager. I was just wondering, how many times does your board meet in a year? For board members?
Almost every month.
Every month? Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay.
Anything else, guys? Heroes? Larry Clark?
Question to Barry. Barry, you said that there was for the forage specialist. Is there crop specialist too that will be coming from a different pot, or so that there is people that can call into that also?
The one pot of money covers a forage specialist. I'm the livestock specialist, and there are 2 crop specialists involved with this project as well.
No, thank you. That answered that question.
Excuse me, it's up to the research association if we wanted to have a webinar, even one-to-one consultation with any forage specialist, even crop specialist, so we can announce through social media, and so we can have a crop specialist as well. So we can continue those services in our area as well. So they gave us that freedom that we can call anyone.
Any other questions before we let them close up? They got any closing remarks, Cleo?
No, just only wanted to say that the co-op, they already approached us to have some trials at Legacy Station in Camrose. I don't think so it's going to happening now. And definitely we, people who are contributing more with the group, definitely, they are privileged, but if they are not contributing more to the group, then they won't get same services. Like they'll get it what they contribute. This is the feedback I got from the board. I have only one request from you. I need your support to keep this group alive. This is the only request I have for the council. Please support us.
Thanks, Cleo, for your presentation.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
Have a good day.
We're going to move on to the next delegation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cleo. Moving right along. We do introductions again, I guess. We'll start with Larry Clark. Larry Clark.
Any gender? Good morning, Barry.
Good morning.
Sheree Neats, good morning.
Dave Grower, Chair.
Hey, Nixon, good to see you, Barry.
Yeah, nice to be back.
Les Stuhlberg, good morning.
Morning.
Nice haircut, Barry. I'm depressed. You know who it is, James.
Yeah.
Blackman.
Quentin Beaumont, Assistant Director of Operations. Eric Kushner, Manager of Information System.
Thank you. Okay, Barry, you got the floor. Go ahead.
All right. If you guys can bring up the slides, I'd sure appreciate it. Do I have the screen control or?
I'll control the slides, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, the next one.
Then I'll just throw the mine up as well on a little bit so I can.
Screen share. We have it up.
There we are. You're partway through. You have to bring it back a little bit. There. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the full presentation screen up in front of me here so I can see what I'm doing. And
Watch the Zoom call, you should be able to see it as well.
yeah, it's just that it's in that very, very small, small screen. That's okay, I'll do it here. All right, so what Ryan chatted to me about, and Dave as well, is they wanted me to give just a few things that are happening in the industry that are going to have an impact on what's going to happen in the next year or so. So I'm just going to go through some of the international, national and trade issues that are going along, and then bring it back down a little bit into more of a local setting. So next slide, please. One of the things that happened here a couple months ago is the world became aware that the Malaysian palm oil was being developed or farmed by children, or we're using child labor. They didn't have the proper protective equipment when they were applying herbicides or fungicides or insecticides. So they considered the work conditions to be unsuitable. And what the United States did is they put a complete embargo preventing any import of Malaysian palm oil into the United States. Now, palm oil is probably the largest vegetable oil used across the world. So when they did that, they increased the demand for canola oil and also for soybean oil. And that has partially strengthened the price of canola and soybeans. And that's part of the reason that we've seen the price jump up in the last 3-4 months. Next slide, please. Brazil is concerned right now with inflation, food price inflation within their own country. So in order to stop the rise, what they do is they put an export tax on products going out of the country, being any agricultural product, meat, soybeans, canola, corn, wheat, it doesn't really matter. So that reduces the total supply of grains on the international market. And that has also partly been the cause of the increase in prices for food in the grocery store, and also the increased price that is being paid for these commodities on the open market. Next one, please. President Biden didn't take long to make his presence known on the international market. And what they've done is they've applied a 20 to 73% tariff on phosphate fertilizer imports from Russia and Morocco. They're citing unfair trade practices as their reason, and that's what they typically use anytime they have a problem, no different than the softwood lumber problems and trade barriers that were put up with Canada. What that's going to do is it's going to limit the supply of phosphate fertilizer available to North America. And in the last 2 weeks, the price of phosphate fertilizer has gone up $200 a ton. And the people that I've chatted with, they say that's not the end of it. It's going to continue to go up. And on the other side of the coin is, if you've got fertilizer sitting in storage at your dealership, especially if it's phosphate fertilizer, find a way to get it home and store it at home, because when they run out, they're going to run out and there's going to be shortages. Next slide, please. Russia has also experienced a problem with securing enough food for their own people, and they can export up to 17.5 million tons of grains per year, and the target this year for that 4-month period of time is they've imposed a $30 US per ton tariff that the farmer has to pay back to Russia for every ton of grain that's exported out of the country. So in other words, they're trying to keep their grain at home. And the other comment that I found on a Syngenta news article is they say Russia has millions of acres of land that is not being used right now. And within the next 10 years, Russia can become the world's largest wheat exporter. So if that happens, it's really going to change the dynamic of international trade. Next slide, please. International issues. The world is becoming smaller and smaller when you have special interest groups, United Nations, any of these organizations, or even public opinion through the use of social media, be it Skype or not Skype, Facebook, or any of these other platforms. They're putting pressure on some of the countries to limit or prevent the use of glyphosates in their countries. So Austria was the first one to announce something here back in September that they wanted to ban the use of glyphosate or Roundup within the next 4 years. But the prime minister or the president of Austria is a lawyer. And she said, we can't just do this unilaterally. They have to go through the process being part of the EU and the regulations that are going on. So they're in the legislative situation where they have to get legal opinion and get things organized before they can actually do that. Mexico wants a full ban by 2024. France this year is having a partial ban starting January 1st. Mexico is planning to stop importing Roundup Ready corn and soybeans. And I think this is just the start of it. We can expect more restrictions on how we farm, what we can do, what products can be used. And unfortunately, some of the people that are putting pressure on us have very little understanding of what needs to be done on farm. And they want to have this utopian society where they can get done what they want. Next slide, please.
Barry, do you want us to ask questions as you go or at the end?
Oh, as we go along, please. Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, James.
So a couple of those, I mean, let's face it, money talks. I mean, if you go ahead and ban the use of Roundup Ready product in certain countries, does that not increase or decrease the value of, what does it do? Does it increase or decrease the value of our product? At the end of the day, if it does decrease it, we're going to sell more of it. I mean, people want cheap food, but they're not necessarily, we could produce good food, but it's not necessarily always cheap food. And I'm not so sure they're understanding that.
Yeah. I think what'll happen in the case of Mexico, where they're going to ban the import of Roundup Ready corn and soybeans, that's going to reduce the demand for the product, leading to a larger surplus in the United States, and that's going to drive the price of that product down.
We sell to the United States, or do we sell our soybeans over to the Arab countries?
That's the the big thing with Mexico being so close to the United States, the freight to get the product across the line is very minimal.
Okay.
But if, let's say we get a $50 or $60 a ton, and I'm pulling that number out of the air. Let's say we get that amount of a discount on price because of the surplus, then you'll find countries that are less developed or less willing to pay or don't have the ability to pay for expensive food. Then you'll see countries from Africa or other parts of the world buying more of the product at that lower price. So it's going to be a real mix of prices going up and down until it stabilizes. But the one thing that is going to happen is without the ability to use some of these herbicides that are available, the cost of production is probably going to go up. And in some cases, the ability for these crops to yield as much as they are right now with the excellent weed control that we have, we're probably going to see lower production rates when Roundup is taken out of the picture.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, there's a couple other things on the international market that are not ag related, but they definitely are going to play a part of what's going to happen in agriculture in the next 3 to 5 years. The one right now is the ethnic Muslims in China are being, as the vote in the Commons was last week, they're calling it a genocide. And some people are saying, okay, is this a preclusion to the same situation we had in 1939 when the Germans started exterminating the Jewish population? And there's been a few people speculating, and I don't know how much you can put into this, but China wants to be known as the military and economic power of the world. And is this something where they're getting set up to do something in the next 5 to 10 years? I don't know, but this is something we're going to have to really watch to see how this develops. And with them importing 24 to 30 million tons of corn this year, that is an awful lot of food. And some of that was part to the flooding of the rivers last spring, where they had to let the dikes open. They flooded the fields of rice and other grains so that they didn't flood out the cities. That could be part of this. But if those people that are talking about 1939 again, they're going to stockpile a bunch of food in the short term so they have it available over the next 3, 4, 5 years. So I don't know if there's any credibility to that rumor or not, but we all know that the Russians in 1917 found out the fastest way to get into a revolution is to have empty stomachs. So they're really pushing hard to make sure that they're feeding their population to keep political stability. Next slide, please. The other superpower that really has a lot to do with where things go in the next few years is this gentleman, President Biden. It didn't take him long to give the executive order, shut down the Keystone XL pipeline going to Nebraska. And part of that is when he signed that executive order, it also required the company to remove all the pipe that has been laid south of the 49th parallel. So he's pushing his weight around. He's known to be one that has a hard stance on many international issues. He thought that the U.S. has been too soft over the last 4 years. We don't know what his thoughts are on the farm policy, but there's a giant bill that's supposed to be coming before the Congress and the Senate within the next 6 months on how the funding goes and what they're going to do for farm policy and aid. And the next step is, what's he going to do with the international trade embargo sanctions And the big one for me is the North American Free Trade Agreement 2, and seeing what he thinks about the free trade agreement and if he wants to make changes again, even though it's been renegotiated in the last 3 to 4 years. Next one, please. On the Canadian side of things, the one thing that the Canadian government or the Bank of Canada is trying to do right now is keep interest rates low, because they realize that if even with a 0.5% increase in interest rates, it's really going to negatively impact a lot of the communities, be it small businesses, be it farms, be it, almost any sector of the economy will be hit by that. But with the amount of money that Mr. Trudeau and his crew have printed in the last 2 years, they have to find a way to pay for all this borrowing. And the only way they can do it is to increase the interest rates for the money going out to the banks, which relates back to higher interest rates to the consumer. So we're going to have to watch that one. If we're going to have any changes, I expect it within the next 6 months. In the last 3 to 4 weeks, the US dollar has weakened and the Canadian dollar has strengthened considerably. It's about 4 cents right now compared to the end of December. And what that's going to do is help reduce the cost of importing machinery from the US. But anything that Canada exports will be more expensive. And on the local side of things, a lot of the cattle in the past have gone south across the line and bought by US interests. So for every penny that the Canadian dollar goes up, the price of cattle goes down by roughly 2.5 cents a pound. Next slide. The other one that's a little bit further down the road, but it's going to have its impact, is the carbon tax by 2030 is going to be $170 a ton. When it was at $20 a ton, I kept track of all the carbon tax that was collected for my household, just for gasoline, natural gas, and that amounted to almost $1,800 a year. That's just for this house. So if we look at that and see what's going to happen to the large diesel fuel users, for example, running tractors and combines and that, it's going to take a really big hit out of the pocketbooks of producers. The other side that is a little bit disappointing is they repealed the carbon credits for zero-till. You used to be able to get $3 an acre for carbon credits for zero-till. That is now gone. There's a little bit more chat now that we need to develop some sort of protocols for people that keep land in native range or long-term perennial forage stands. They want to see what, there has to be more work done to get see how much carbon is actually sequestered into the native pastures and the perennial forage stands. So that's work that has to be done. And yesterday I noticed in the Canadian Cattleman's magazine that Agriculture Canada is making it a priority to get more research done on the carbon sink side of things for livestock on pastures and on native range. Next slide, please. The amount of grain that Canada produced last year was not a bumper crop. Inventories are down. Prices are coming up. Canola is currently at $17.38 a bushel. That was off of yesterday's quote from Cargill. $766 a ton on farm.
What's the highest it's ever been,
Yeah. My dad was happy when he got $14 one year, but this is definitely new.
Is that the highest, Barry? Is that the highest we've ever had?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it is a record high.
Yeah. Flax, I don't have it on the slide, but it's selling for $25 a bushel right now as well.
That's seed flax?
No, this is flax going to the crusher.
Oh, wait. What's seed
Yeah.
flax worth then?
I have no clue. So what the crushers are scared of is they're going to run out of seed for June and July and August crush. So they're putting $1 premium on that to sign contracts and have it delivered at a later date. And even for September, you're looking at about $13 a bushel for canola for September delivery. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if you had canola sitting in, if you were able to combine in August, they'd take it right off the field. They're going to be that short. It's definitely an interesting situation. Barley right now in Lethbridge, $6.86 a bushel. Oats in Edmonton, $4.25. Feed wheat, $8.40, and peas at $9.57.
What's corn going at right now?
And that one I didn't have a price for.
They usually substitute the corn with the barley, right? Down in that southern stream?
And at a certain point, they do. But I don't know what the substitution, where it starts to kick in. I couldn't find that number. So anybody with grain in the bins, you know, some guys are grumbling, yeah, I sold my canola for $9.50 a bushel in September and delivered it. I could have got 2 crops in one basically without the expense. But that's where, you know, your forward contracts, do you always contract 100% of your production? It's not a smart move, and this year has definitely showed that. But I just don't know how farmers are going to decide what they want to do. Canola, even at $13 a bushel, is pretty attractive if you can get 50, 60, 70 bushels an acre. But you're looking at almost $300 an acre for the cost of putting in $300 to $350 to put in an acre of canola right now. If you can look at oats or barley, for example, one good example is Baylor oats up in that St. Paul country typically runs between 160 and 200 bushels an acre. So you're still going to gross over $800 an acre. And if your input costs are only $150 or $200, is it better off for you to seed the oats and cut that rotation out of the canola? But I think a lot of people will look at the big dollar sign on the canola, and you're going to see a lot of yellow country this summer. Next slide, please. We're looking at hay and forage prices. Right now, your dairy quality hay is any place from 8 to 11 cents a pound. Your regular alfalfa grass hay for beef cows and sheep is 5 to 6 cents. Green feed's about a penny to a penny and a half down from that. Canola meal, right now, $459 a ton. One of the guys I'm working for, he bought canola in November for $190 a ton. Wheat distillers back in December was $160 a ton. So those commodities are definitely in high demand. People are substituting in wheat distillers or corn distillers to replace barley and getting the extra protein on top of it. And the canola meal, a lot of it's going to export markets, plus the local demand, because a lot of the hay this year has only 7, 8, 9% protein, not enough for lactating cows and definitely not enough for growing calves. So the demand for protein is up. Peas are unrealistic at 9.25 a bushel to use in a ration. Next slide. Back to the local side of things. The cost for wood and steel has gone up 35% in the last 14 months. That's to put the whole farm structure together. So if you bought a building package, had somebody put it up for you, the cost is 35% higher than it was a year ago. Wood products, have doubled in price from June to September. So it's going to cost a lot more to fix fences or put buildings up. The one my brother sent me this morning is the cost of canola seed has gone up roughly $8 an acre. So right now, Roundup Ready canola is running around $12 a pound, and Liberty Link is around $14 a pound. And a lot of these guys are seeding at about 5 pounds to the acre. So, you know, you're looking at $80 to $90 an acre just for seed for canola. That's just about as expensive as corn. Next one, please. The one thing that has me a little bit concerned right now is the lack of snow. Last fall, it tended to get a little bit dry. Even a month ago, I talked to people that were still pounding in posts because there's no frost in the ground. But we're heading into a situation where we could very easily end up in very severe drought or very, very dry conditions. I can use the drought word because I'm not a government employee anymore. And if you look at what happens in the States with El Nino and La Nina, you can see that most of the United States, next, I'm on slide 15 with the U.S. drought map. What we can see, you know, California, Texas, a lot of the southern states and even into the Midwest, they're showing drought conditions right now. And typically what happens as the year goes on, that severity of the drought moves north. So I'm a little bit concerned we might be looking at a situation that could possibly be as bad as what we had in 2002. Now, next slide, please. One thing that is happening, Jason Woods helped me out with this one, but the amount of cattle coming into Canada, especially into Alberta right now, is the highest it's ever been. And part of that is the Canadian dollar being so weak. And up till now, the feed costs were fairly low. Granted, that's changed in the last couple of 3 months. But we're seeing a lot more cattle coming into Western Canada and the rest of the country. And what that's doing is filling up feedlots with I know there's a couple of companies that are bringing in thousands and thousands of Holstein steer calves to be fed up here.
Are they under quarantine for COVID for 2 weeks?
For 2 years, because that's how long it
At a hotel.
At $2,000 for 3-night stand, yeah.
Exactly.
What's all in that hotel anyhow?
I wouldn't want to know. But anyway, what we're seeing is if the feedlots are filling up with these Holstein steers and other cattle coming up from the States, that's going to reduce the price for the calves. They're willing to pay for calves going into the lots from the Canadian situation. Next slide, please. Exports for cattle going into the United States, unfortunately, we were down about 3 to 4%. Part of that is the total number of calves that we have available. The Canadian cow herd is still shrinking, but some of that is the buyers don't see the economic advantage of feeding the cattle across the line. So on the cattle side of things, right now, the prices are fairly stable, but if you can't get $1,200 to $1,300 for that calf you're selling in the fall, you're not making any money. So next slide, please. Any questions?
I've heard from some people saying they're concerned about the cattle and cattle prices because the United States and their extreme policies going in down there and their push for, I guess you'd say, anti-meat and more vegetable protein. What are you hearing out there?
That, you know, you look at the advertising on the TV, you know, be it A&W, be it whatever company, the push to non-meat, meat or vegetable-based meat replacers is definitely catching on throughout North America, and that is reducing the demand for beef. The only thing that people have to realize is one of the big problems when they convert to a non-meat diet, be it vegan or vegetarian, 90% of them come up with low iron and are anemic. And that generally takes about a year to 16 months to develop. But there are health concerns with removing meat out of your diet. But it is a factor, no question.
Gary, I got a quick question for you and a comment on that too. The economics of the cost of protein, we can put protein on the plate a lot cheaper than they can put fake protein on the plate, or what you would call the green protein. So I think with the economic downturn that we're going to see, we may see a loss of consumption, but it'll be back to the basics, I think. I have a question, and maybe you can answer this or not, but I just had an email from an individual a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say this, Anaphomyces. Have you heard of that? Am I saying that wrong? Maybe
It's the pea.
it's the pea clubroot.
Yeah. Where it goes to the ground.
I really don't have much to do with that at all.
Okay, I just heard that it's making its way into the Stetler County, so I just wondered if you had any input or any information on it. That's fine. It's kind of out of left field. I was hoping to get a little bit more information this week, but we didn't get it, so that's cool.
No, sorry, that's out of my
No, not your fault, Barry. I would have sent it directly to you and asked the question earlier, so you were prepared, but.
Good. Got her?
Gary, call cow prices, or do you think we're going to see an increase in prices? We haven't seen any of these tip ups at all, really since fall last year. So is it forecast to see them, or are they going to continue where they're at or decline? What are you seeing on that?
There is the possibility for cull cow prices to come up because we are getting closer and closer to barbecue season, and the demand for hamburger is definitely higher in the summer than it is in the winter. I think what's held back the killing of cows was the COVID shutdowns of the packing plants and the reduction in slaughter. They're still working through a backlog of cattle from 6 months ago. They're just about at the tail end, and they're cleaning that up. So once the hook space starts to open up with opportunity to kill more cull cows, I can see the price come up.
Thank you.
I don't know how much, but I don't think they can go much lower than this, but that's my personal opinion.
I certainly hope not.
And if you
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, Ernie Genders up next.
What spurred Biden on to put sanctions onto Russia?
The phosphate issue. Yeah, they're claiming that there's unfair trade practices by Russia to sell product internationally. So they feel like their own potash industry or phosphorus industry in the States is being harmed by the imports. That's why they put the tariff on it.
Okay, thanks, Barry.
Yeah.
Barry, but some of the, has Russia got better phosphate now than they used to have?
I'm not sure
Very
what
inconsistent. That's
yeah.
when this
I don't.
They imported a bunch from there a few years ago, right? But it wasn't consistent at all. You didn't know what you were putting in the ground. Thank you. I don't know. You were back in the day then too, right?
Yeah.
$6 or $6 barley, will that change the amount of cattle that the states bring in here?
I think it will. It should slow it down. I don't think you'll really be able to find barley at $6 a bushel. I've talked to a few guys in the last 3 or 4 days, and they're saying they need $6.50 to even get a guy interested in selling barley to them. So, you know, where is it going to go if we have a dry year coming up and the yields are only 60 or 70% of what we normally get? That's going to sustain these prices and maybe even drive them up a little bit further.
Okay.
Hi, Barry. It's Les Stuhlberg. Going back to the plant-based fake meat situation, I see a lot of it is being pushed as saving the environment, getting rid of the animals. But the plant-based portion of these fake meats is only like maybe one of 12 or more ingredients that goes into these products. So when you calculate all the, I guess the environmental unfriendliness of harvesting all those other ingredients, maybe the actual real meat is more environmentally friendly than the fake meat, really, because they only take into account the one ingredient when they're spouting how hard it is on the environment to raise cattle.
You can say that
That's
with
right.
confidence. It is absolutely less. 100% agree.
I agree completely as well. The one thing is, if you have the opportunity, there's a lady out of Australia that has looked at the nutrient content in meat compared to this plant-based product. The difference is in high levels of sodium, which is not good for high blood pressure. Some of the other things that are in that product, she doesn't like it at all. She said, we're going to run into troubles if people really get into this. There's going to be a lot of malnourished people if they really catch on to this new way of eating.
That's right. And then, you know, the thousands of acres of grasslands and things that are used to graze cattle on are far better for the environment than, I guess, if that all went under the plow to produce plant-based material.
I agree. One of the projects that we're waiting for approval on, I'm still involved with research through the forage associations. And one of the projects is to feed biochar to cow-calf pairs. And hopefully we'll know within the next week or two if we have funding. And that'll be a 3-year study to measure the difference in methane production from these cows when they're fed biochar on pasture. So we're hoping for a 25% reduction. And if we can get that protocol developed, that could be a very nice carbon credit for guys that are grazing native pastures or long-term perennial stands. So
Go ahead, James.
Gary, you were working on that when you were still at the Ag Info Center. Is any of that transferable over to your other stuff, or?
the stuff we did before was in the feedlot and backgrounding situations.
Get that finished?
That study has finished. The quality of biochar that we had did not produce a reduction or did not reduce methane emissions. But on these higher grain rations, with the control cattle, they had a 12.5% death loss. And with the biochar, it was only 4.
Oh,
That's a big one.
AAA grade went up from 84 to 86%, which is not really that much. But on the other side, the yield grade, the size of the ribeye, 40% of the control animals had no biochar. Their yield grade 1 was at 40%. And with the biochar, it went up to 86%.
can you send that study to us, or is it open to send, or how does that work?
Yeah, I should be able to send that to you guys.
Awesome, thank you, sir.
Could you send it to the ag fieldman, and then they can say each copy of it? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send it to Ryan and Quentin. You know, increase in yield grade 1, that's worth $150 to $200 a carcass. So we're just waiting to get more results so we can try to get the registration changed and get people to use it more.
Larry Clark, you're up.
Barry, just a question too, with you talk about the cow prices with COVID related shutdowns. What do you think is going to happen to the food industry with like Ole Mill being shut down now and with pigs, and what's the forecast on how it affects our food market?
Well, in the short term, it's going to increase the price of pork on the shelf. But that reduction in slaughter capacity is going to create a backlog of animals on farm. And in time, when everybody gets back and the plants are running at full capacity, there's a glut for the number of animals to be slaughtered. So the farmer is going to get a discounted price. And then there's going to be an oversupply in the meat counter. So after everything gets back to normal for slaughter, you could potentially see a discount on pork prices in the future as well.
It could take months to catch up on that too.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Well, we're getting on in the thing, Barry. So you're good.
I am good. Thank you for the opportunity. It was great chatting with you folks again, and wish you all the best in the upcoming year.
And hopefully we can be face to face. That'd be good.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Barry.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Carrying on. Well, we'll move on to number 5. Ag Service Field Board Administration's Report. Be Ryan, probably?
Right here.
Okay.
Yeah, first thing, our strict-on sales definitely slowed down when it was minus 35. Didn't think anybody wanted to get in their truck and come to town, so
Slowed down.
slowed down quite a bit, yeah. On February 16th, we did have an additional 25 cases sent to us from Agramax, and so that's half of our remaining cases that are in transit. So we still have 25 additional cases ordered, but not in, but it's good that half of them have come. And that just kind of shows you how they're rationing it out. We have 50 ordered, they sent us 25. It's a weird game. Moving on to seasonal staff, we're currently reviewing health and safety information such as our SDS, our job descriptions, safe work practices, and training documents. Just information required for our seasonal staff throughout the year and our sprayer operators.
Will you be hiring seasonal staff this year? Is that the plan?
Yeah, we're going to be putting out information for advertising for seasonal staff in March.
How many?
I believe it is 3 or 4 for the ag department itself, and that's going to be the mowing crew, and that's not including staff that is working with between operations and ag. And
How many are there in between that are working there now? Roughly. Huh?
what was that, sorry?
How many are working there now? Not these are 3 or 4 seasonal staff.
Yeah, so currently we have one gentleman working between ag and public works, helping myself get spray equipment ready. We've been changing lines, just going through the pumps, making sure everything's ready to go, things like that. We have one seasonal staff that is returning from last year, and he's going to be nice to have around. He'll be speeding up training because he's already been trained.
When's he start? Or when did he start? Like 1st of April? Huh?
8th, 3rd.
8th. Thank you.
So yeah, those advertisements are going to be going out in March. On January 28th, we did receive 2 separate calls from Alberta Farm Animal Care in relation to some animals in distress. And so I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with how we interact with Farm Animal Care, Alberta Farm Animal Care, but they have a distressed animal line. They will get a call, or they do receive calls from concerned citizens, maybe farmers. Most of the time it's people driving by on the road. And so they will receive a call, help, there's some cows on the road, or there's some cows that are down in a field. or they're just maybe look like they're in terrible condition. We generally get a call or two every year. So in this case, we got one call in relation to a cow that was in distress, and one group of cows that was just in poor looking shape. And generally with these calls, you can generally make a phone call or make a visit. And so in this case, the producer was calving and he was on it. He had a hired man that was dealing with the problem right away. That was nice to hear. And in the second case, it was actually in relation to a dairy herd. So a dairy herd that was in poor condition. They always look like they're in poor condition. No dairy herd looks good. And then actually we did have a third call earlier last year, early December. And that was in relation to some horses that were on pasture without water. They actually did have water behind the house, but on the other hand, horses don't really need water. It's all about management. So as long as you can get out to that site and you can see horses that are as fat as they are tall, you know they're not short of feed, and also they're doing quite well. So
Enough water.
doing good. So just for everybody's information, sometimes we do get calls like that. The only case where I've ever heard of the SPCA being involved in the last couple of years in our area was one case down in Starland County, but that was we haven't had any situations like that in our area. Moving on, the County of Stetler Agricultural Services Board Bursary. We will be accepting applications up till April 15th, 2021. And advertising for this is going to be through social media, Facebook, Twitter, County Connections newsletter, and the Stetler Independent. We'll be running 2 separate ads a month apart for 1 week. So there'll be 1 week advertising, followed by a gap, followed by another week of advertising. Anybody have any questions on the report?
You got a question for Ryan? I need a mover for his report. Wayne Nixon. Anything else? All in favor? Carried. Moving along, go down to new business. Farm Safety Center funding request, page 2.
So Farm Safety Center, they do annual presentations to students in our area, and that includes all colony schools, generally in the town of, the town of Stetler, both the Catholic and the elementary school. And that's through, I believe it's K to 5 or K to 4. And they do a variety of presentations ranging from going into grain bin safety as well as quad safety, ATV safety. And so generally in the past have requested amounts in relation to how many presentations they did do that previous year. And it's always been about 1,000 students. It might fluctuate by 50 one way or the other, but it's always been around that general amount. And they make an annual request of $3.50 per student that receives education from them. This year, based on that funding, they would receive $696 based on their presentation to 200 students. So that's just because all of their presentations were scheduled for either the fall of 2020, or late spring of 2020. And that's when the lockdown was, COVID. Same with everything. So we have 2 different numbers that we could go with. We have 2019, our funding level was $3,395. That is what was funding provided by Stetler County. And that's pretty close every year. It's in that rough amount. But if we were to provide funding based on that amount, this year it would be $700. In their request, they tried to make it fairly clear that they were requesting based on the old model of $700. They also emphasized in their letter that's attached below that that is less. And so our recommendation is that we fund them in the same amount as 2019. However, that is up for debate.
James.
Hey, Ryan, don't take this personally, but I'm totally confused. It may just be me not picking up what you're putting down here. So what did we pay them in 2020? We actually give them the 3,900 or did we give them 695?
My apologies. Let me try again.
Okay.
Last year, we gave them $3,395.
In 2020,
That was, yes, last year, yep.
they did not see any students. They only saw like $700 worth of students, right?
In 2020, we gave them funding based on 2019's numbers.
Okay, so what did they do with the other $2,400 or $2,800?
$2,900.
Right. So I believe they laid that out in their letter here. They still have expenses for those presenters. However, that's a good question. I don't have their financials.
So I mean, I'll be honest, I have a hard time if you're not doing the work, paying you for it. So, yeah, I have no problem. I think it's a good program, and I think it's something that we should be supporting. But if they didn't do it, why would we give you money for not doing something?
That money should roll forward.
Roll forward. Well,
I would think, Ryan, I don't. What's your thought on it, buddy?
My decision to make. So
did you not do some of these presentations? Did you help them with it? Is that?
this is separate from the Classroom Ag program.
Okay.
That's just a safety one.
Right. Yeah, this is focused directly on safety.
And James?
Ryan, though, they're asking, like you said, for $700 this year.
Yes.
Maybe they are carrying the other piece forward too. That could be part of it if they think that.
Question though, Ryan, eh?
Yeah, I'm looking in their letter right now.
I think as a board, we'd be for $700 this year would be all right, because if, you know, we don't want to give somebody $3.50 per person for the people they never see. Okay. That would be the board. Dwayne?
Just for clarification, this is for the 2021.
Yes, it is.
Chairman, I would make a motion that we do a donation or whatever you call it, fund for $395 less 700.
Other way around, Mr. Chairman.
No, because the $300 is what it costs for a year's presentation. So last year's was only 700. So next year's it's probably going to be $3,300 again. So.
Oh, but they got $2,400 or $2,800 of our money that they didn't do anything with. Less than.
How long before this has to be done, Ryan?
We could also push this to next meeting. That would be an option.
Meeting, and I would ask them what their thoughts were, and then we'd have better information, would we not?
I see we're getting at Mr. Nyberg, yeah.
I mean, it's pretty clear cut to me how they've done this. They didn't use $2,800 of our money last year. They need $796 to up it, or to bring it up to.
For the next year, for the 21. As long as that's where we're at. Go ahead, Los.
Yeah, no, I think we should contact them and just for some clarification, because I think there's likely going to be a number in between the two. They didn't see students, only a couple hundred students, but there might have been some fixed costs that they get hung with, and but there should still be a surplus. So if they could come back and
Bring that back.
present us what they actually need, take the whatever surplus they did have remaining off of the normal request, and then it'll probably arrive at a number in between if I'm following it right, and but give them that opportunity.
I'll withdraw my motion.
You're going to withdraw your motion? Okay. Sheree? Well, before we go any farther, just so whoever's keeping track here, Wayne, just withdraw your motion for now. Go ahead, Sheree. And then Quentin.
Schools request them to come in, or do they go to the schools and ask if they can come in? Because I'm not sure if this covers all the schools, if you count all the Hutterite schools and all the schools in our area.
Did not attach the list. They do send a list every year of schools that they visit. This year it was obviously much shorter.
They operate. If schools ask them to come in,
I believe it's a request.
or do they tell every
The classroom agriculture program, they request presentation. I'm not sure if they request or they solicit schools to visit. That would be,
Yeah, because it would be nice to see the list of schools.
you guys can ask them all these questions personally and get answers right away.
What's the feeling of the board?
I would give them a heads up though, what our concerns are, so they can be prepared with that.
Can give them that though, right? Good.
I think it'd probably be good to follow up with a Zoom meeting with them if they could, but it definitely would be good for them to know what our line of thinking is a little bit. Yeah.
Just did.
Okay, I will make a motion that we contact the Farm Safety Group for, I guess, more information with the financial end of it, and also request that they could be present at a Zoom meeting for next month.
Like our ag fieldman to make that presentation, right?
If the ag fieldman to coordinate that.
Yep, good.
That's,
In favor? Carry on. Number 5, prep meeting.
I'll take this one. Then we got a request from Chairman Grover. Tuesday, February 16, we sat down and discussed upcoming topics for the February 24 meeting. And we're presented the following items just to bring up. So just put this together for you guys to look over and give us some direction. What do you see? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go with this?
I'll knock all these off this today, but we should start on them like that. A gravel pit to reclamation and all the rest of that. Some of the stuff we should try to get it. I think you had some information. You were talking to somebody else about the Clement pit before the meeting started.
That's correct. I've been
To bring that up now.
with Alberta Environment on Clement Pit on our application. We actually just received an email yesterday. It's in the queue and a person will be assigned that application sometime today. I'll get a name and application number so I can follow up with it, and we'll go from there on that one.
You know, I know it's come up at other meetings, but we just signed a check today for rental on that pit again. So it is something that just goes every year.
How long has it been? How long we owned that one pit? And there's lots of them. Got them, the 2 Larson pits stick out in my mind. 12 years?
How much was the check, Mr. Clerk?
Bucks.
$3,300.
33.
You have the check, you're signing it there?
Is there 3 different pits?
There's some different ones, because this one that was applied for, we've held payment waiting on
Yeah, well, it's just, all it says is Clement Pit, so.
There's 2 Clement pits.
description behind it.
It's the wrong one. If it's $3,300. It's the one that's 25.
We denied the pit. Quit buying land from the same person over and over.
See it at the same day, so.
Have a Clement 1, 2, and 3.
All right.
Our land description. Okay,
Anyways, just looking for some direction on
to do with them.
in this memo, what you guys want to do.
Yes.
Maybe I'm a little confused. I'm not, I guess I am a lot confused. Not maybe. So is this not a council
because we're not gonna be able to make any decisions on this gravel pit.
Recommendation, yeah.
But it is, like, the gravel pits are under Public Works, and the reclamation is, and, well, really, all the spraying is done by the Ag Service Board. But, like, where does the line draw in this? Where is sitting as far as who looks after what and who's responsible for what? Ultimately, it is any decision that has to be made will come through council. So is this not a redundance of?
Not really, Quentin applies for all of them, don't you, Quentin?
I'd really like to hear the administration's point of view, Mr. Grover, but thank you for that.
But, yeah.
Can somebody from administration explain to me how this works so that I don't have to have it filtered through?
Well, it's a few people that look after the pits in general, right? We have one person will apply for the application to develop into a gravel pit and keeps registration rolling. And then Public Works does a lot of the work. I guess operations, old Public Works does a lot of the work as far as mining the gravel, putting the topsoil back. Ag Services seed it, spray it. Ag Services apply for the application to get a certification in the end, but it's a joint effort on all parts. It is a county operation.
Who makes the final decision then, as far as who has authority to make the decision, I guess is what I'm after. Is the Ag Service Board have any authority to make a decision whether we're going to reclaim a pit or not?
I think that would fall back to operations. Are you?
You're handing it back to him?
But it would be, are you done with the pit?
So it would ultimately
Would say, I'm now done with the
make that decision.
Oh, because
At the end of the day, when you regrass it and you get it in shape to get it reclaimed, the Public Works puts the dirt where it's supposed to be, then you reseed it, and then you work on it, you get rid of the weeds and stuff and reclaim it. Wayne, go ahead.
I would like to know what we're after here, because I don't want to debate any issue until there's a motion made on it. So I'm not sure exactly what we're after here.
Get them off the books so that they've been on there for.
I'm not talking about that, Dave. I'm talking about the request to have a preparation meeting. That was one of the things. So until there's a motion made, I don't really want to debate it. I mean, I can give you my opinion, but
Andrew?
I just wanted to provide a bit of clarity, just as the context of ASB versus council versus administration. One of the reasons that this comes forward to ASB is just as we're looking forward to their work plan, and sort of whatever ASB does affects the capacity they have to do any other program that would normally be directed by ASB. So I think that was sort of the scope of the entire memo there. Discusses a lot of everything they're doing through the year, and we certainly want the input of the ASB on that department for where the priorities lie, because we do have finite resources, particularly as it comes to man hours. So that's sort of, I think, the scope of the discussion we're looking at today.
If I'm right, Andrew, it's about a work plan, not a decision-making program here.
That seems to be my understanding, yeah. And we don't do strategic planning specifically to ASB anymore. We used to do that. This is maybe an interim step between the two. It's not necessarily necessary to do an entire strategic plan for a board. But this, prioritization of what these guys do when we can only do so much, it's a level of service discussion. That's really what it comes down to.
I find on something like this has been going on well before I even come here, that we are definitely lacking a policy stating, okay, well, how things are really going to be done. Within Public Works, if they are done with the pit, they put the topsoil back onto it. It should then come back to council and say, okay, you've got 2 years. Generally in the oil patch, you would have 2 years in order to put grass back onto it. and get a reclamation certificate. Anything much longer than that, you're not working with the oil company anymore. They find someone else in order to be able to do it. So at a point on that, if you cannot get a reclamation certificate within 2 years, we do not need the onus onto Public Works or Agriculture. It should come back to council and say, okay, we send a letter to environment and we rattle their chain, because every year that comes by, this is costing us more money. And if I look at, say, like over the last 10 years, it's been a substantial amount. So like, I find it should come back to council and for us to be able to make the decision, whether it's a policy, bylaws, anything like that, we take on the onus.
This discussion, Mr. Chairman, I would be entirely against a pre-meeting to set the agenda. Usually our ASB agenda is pretty simple. It goes half a day, as normally.
An hour and a half, not a half a day. It's an hour and a half.
Well, 10 to 12, yeah. It's fairly simple, and I think any one of us can send an email in and ask our administration to do a few things for us if we want to discuss rental land or gravel pits or anything. I know we usually get updated on those a few times a year, so I just see it's a waste of.
I don't think the prep day is a valid thing, or
No, I don't.
meeting. Okay, good. That's your opinion. Larry?
I guess just, I've seen our agricultural meetings get simpler and simpler though. So today, maybe there's more meat to a meeting. And by asking to sit down to go through an agenda, I think we make something that's maybe makes it worth us coming into a meeting. So,
It can be done by an email.
well, it could be done.
We're in a situation where we are trying to save money on a regular basis, and it'll be another. I mean, do we have the Ag Service Board chairman and the Ag Service Board vice chair to come in? Now we're looking at $500, an extra $500 of per diems. Like, I mean, honestly, anything that can be with this particular item can be done by an email.
Oh, no, I guess I'm not talking about the prep day. I'm talking about the prep.
Okay.
I believe the prep is very,
But that should be administratively.
and communicated, because our prep has got so it's simpler and simpler and simpler. So I guess what if our direction is, I think today's meeting had an agenda that was worth sitting down for today. My opinion.
Not in advance necessarily. I mean, all the work is done by administration, whether it's council or ASB. So, and we all have opportunity to contribute to it. If we have something that we want brought up, we send an email. Should be copied to all members of either the Ag Service Board, MPC, or council. Should be copied to everybody, so everybody has equal opportunity to think about whatever's going to be on budget or on council on agenda. Pardon me. So, board meeting. I just think it's
Both presentations were put in.
So you're up next.
Yep. So
Oh, my comment is that Yvette has mentioned a few times that, I mean, with this tougher budget, we got to look at everything. And she even suggested maybe we should be looking at reducing the number of ASB meetings in a year, have more agenda material in less meetings. And so I think this is kind of counterproductive to saving costs, is throwing in an additional planning meeting. But I agree, these meetings can be beefed up a bit and with more information like we did today. But I think that can be done through phone calls or emails. If you have suggestions for our staff, things that come up to mind, like the pits or the delegations or anything that you think would make a good addition to an ASB meeting, just give our administration people a heads up on it, and they'll work it in a future agenda, I'm sure. And it definitely save additional costs, and we would accomplish the same thing with getting things discussed that we would like to discuss.
I'll just speak to that for 2 seconds. We met for 15 minutes. I didn't get a charge for it anyhow, so it doesn't matter that part of it. But if you think we should just phone in and want this put on the thing and not put on the thing, I have no problem. If you don't want to do a prep thing before, I just thought it put a little bit more meat on the bone here. And agriculture is important. Shree's up next.
So listening to you, Andrew, it sounds like maybe bring this forward to our ag meetings for like the gravel pits and stuff, just to try and streamline stuff. I like that we could do that, and before it even comes to council. So I like that idea of streamlining it. And like Dave said, if Dave wants to come in and talk to them to prepare for the meeting, not charged, I don't see anything wrong with that. And a lot of people come in and ask just so he's ready for the meeting. There's nothing wrong with that. I like today's meeting where we had Barry come on and Battle River. That was good. It brought a lot more to our meeting today. So.
Yeah, and I guess that's just where, like I said, what are we debating here? Is it what we're having on our meetings? Our gravel pits, in 4 years I've been here, you hear something about them at budget. Then throughout the summer, you'll hear a couple things about them. But I mean, it's one of those things that just keeps moving every year if you don't get a rec certificate. And if it's what we're doing as, or what Yvette staff is doing, I guess that's something we have to talk to Yvette about. But if it's something that we're not getting an ear from Alberta Environment, things like that, maybe we have to move that up the ladder in order to get people, the right people at the table, so that we can move these things forward. So I do see value in tracking this stuff, and what if we want to call it a work plan, if we want to call it part of agenda, but it's something that at least it's trackable and it's a report card on it. So I think there's, with agriculture within our county, that's one of our biggest industries. I'm just concerned a bit on how it looks with us over the last few months that we seem to be stepping away from agriculture and we don't see the importance in it. And it's simple. Well, it's not simple. It's very complex now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with you, Larry, 100%. I have no problem with this. If this is where we're going to deal with it, then I just wanted to make sure that was the proper stance, because always in previous times, anything that was done with gravel pits, we got a report at council from the Director of Ag Services, or Director, I'm not sure which one now, Director of Ag Services, I guess, of what was going on, but it was always done through Public Works. I have no problem with that. I agree with you. I think that's something that definitely needs to be done. It needs to be addressed. And if that's how we're addressing it, I'm okay. But this department cannot make decisions. Everything would have to, and that's what my caution was. If we're going to, like Ernie said, if we need to elevate this stuff and get her done, then it needs to go to the people that can do it. I know we sit at the same people, but it is the meeting that signs the bottom of the letter to the.
Go ahead, you're up next.
Mr. Chairman, I have no problem with any of the points on here, because I think it does good to add for meetings. But it's not the job of the chairman to set the agenda. It's the administration pretty well knows what has to be done. Anything extra that wants to be done can be a request from the board. That was my point. The other stuff is, I agree. I think we should have to be updated on the gravel pits.
It should be.
And the spraying and the brushing and things like that.
These meetings, Wayne, we're getting down to where I could run them in 15 to 20 minutes, done. And now there's some meat on it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to direction versus decisions, right? So this board largely gives ASB direction. It does have some decision-making power, but largely we see direction. And so if you give a series of directions to ASB that it's going to be too much for their staff resources, we'll bring that back for budget, and that's where it'll find its way back to council. Otherwise, so if you give us, a 20-item work plan to complete by the end of the year today, we'll tell you how much we can do based on the resources that council has already committed. And that would be true whether it was the same 7 bodies who sat here or 7 different bodies if you did members at large, for example. That's always sort of the back of the mind we keep in mind is how much power would you have if you were not councilors, you were just the members at large sitting on this board. And so we always do try and keep that in place, but we do appreciate the direction. It's mainly why boards like this exist, so that our departments can get direction, and as well offloading more from our council agendas to some of our lighter days when appropriate, like gravel pits, which could sort of fit with direction from either ASB or council directly, it's definitely helpful for us. You've seen our council agendas, they're not getting shorter. So if we've got more time here, and, you know, as you've noticed, we've also bulked up on our committee of the whole days where we're, you know, it's starting to become a practice and may just become commonplace that you see one of those every month. And that becomes part of our daily to do. As where the agenda is actually set by chair, the board itself, or administration, that's maybe something we should work through in our procedural bylaw, because it's not well defined, and that could come forward through committee of the whole as well. One of the reasons we seek political influence on our agendas is for a gatekeeper function. Specifically when we have items that might require more work than the rest of council wants to put in. If there's one member with a special interest, or a member of the public requesting something with a special interest, and that would require an amount of work to prepare a report for recommendations that where council has no, or the board has no appetite to go in that direction, those are some of the items, some of the gatekeeper items that a chair of a board can provide. So,
Talking about the lake?
actually, no, not in this case.
Are you done then?
And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I've seen the frustration, say like when Ag Services comes in here and say, oh, well, we've applied for a reclamation certificate, only to find out that we cannot fence off this gravel pit, that we have made arrangements that, yes, he can water the cattle in it. Then they put a pathway down to it. So it costs us another $2,500. This is where I find that if you don't have the clout, come to us. We will have the clout. We will get it done. We'll take on the responsibility, because this is costing us as a county as a whole.
You're up next.
I think that it's a good idea to put some of this information on the Ag Service Board meetings, because you know, lots of times we have an extra hour or so to work on it. So, I mean, that
was sort of the idea of it, Wayne. Put it on there so that we could get started on it and could help Brian and Quentin get certificates for these ones that have been badgering them for years. They'd like to have them off, you'd probably like to have them off your agenda, would you not, Quentin?
That'd be great to have some of these off the records.
I was working with the Ag Service Board, but no, I don't have to.
Go ahead.
No, nobody else. Rick, go ahead.
You guys bring this up a little bit. The way I saw this come in, and we did have a chat with the vet about it, and whether you do a request for decision. No, we did it up as a memo, which is generally information being provided of a conversation that happened, with the idea that there's room for polish on what's being presented here. There's room for a little bit more content. The thing that's of specific value to me is a schedule that we keep. So when it comes to when we're sending agendas out and things like that, I want to see the stuff happening on the dates it's supposed to happen, come hell or high water. Like there's no last minute putting things together. So when I look at this type of stuff, and what I've been watching the last number of months in the interactions here, is we do have a little bit of room for more polish. We have more room, and we have a want for more content, more people presenting valuable information. And that's been obvious for quite some time. So I'd encourage you to look at it more as information being provided. Hopefully we're not duplicating, or we're adding duplicate information, because you're going to have a potentially different audience outside of this room watching than you would at council. Hopefully we're not doing a bunch of extra work to present something, but if there is duplication in where it's being presented, or a little bit in how, that's probably of value to other people as well. So I think the general idea from what I got out of this, and what Yvette talked to me about initially when she brought this to me, was we got room to elevate the quality of these meetings a little bit, add a bit of polish to it, and add some better content. And that's what I got out of it. And by doing it as a memo, I think the general idea was, this is what came out of a meeting. There's a quick discussion, obviously, on what's needed and what's not. If we take it for information and go with it, great. If you want to provide some specific direction through your conversations, that's great as well. But to me, it's an information item more than anything else, if that helps.
You're up.
I think the consensus of the discussion we just had is everybody's in favor of everything on here to add more information pieces to our meeting. And if we can, being that we have the time, if we can deal with gravel pit issues or whatever in these meetings, that's great. I think everybody agreed with everything in there. I think the only thing was they don't want it to come at an extra cost to the county with an extra meeting. But I think everything else, I think everybody quite agrees with, and I agree with Ernie. I mean, if we can speed up some of these reclamations and save the county money, that's a good thing. And however we want to do it, you know, and I think they're all good points, and I think everybody's pretty much in agreement to most of them.
You're up. So there's a couple of items that I and this maybe could have been separated into a couple of different ones, but you got the hold harmless agreement and the administration to organize presentation and delegation for every meeting. So there is a number of items that are different in there. So I think we're all on board about how we're doing, what we're doing with the meeting, but the other items that'd be number 4 on there was amend the hold harmless for brushing to allow, and I think administration quite explained what they can and can't do there. I'm not necessarily prepared to go ahead and have us take on that portion of spraying on private land. It's not advantageous for us. And as far as administration goes with having ag consulting come in, I like Barry. I think he's good. I'm not so sure if it's every month we need to hear from him, and do we have budget for it? Where is the budget in that? I mean, it would add $600 if you did it half the year. It would add $600 to our budget. Maybe that's worth it. I don't know, but we should have the discussion on that.
James, you brought up, say, like the hold harmless agreement onto 10 feet. If there's, we did 11 feet. So where do we ultimately draw the line? At least with a fence line, we can say, okay, it is to the fence line. It could go 100 feet into. Have you really accomplished anything by going in 10 feet?
We can't spray on private land anyways. So, I mean, without changing the.
Well, you can change the spray and spray on private land, right?
Yeah, well,
Inventory you're gonna carry.
But we gotta come back, clean out, change herbicides, go back out to spray that 10 feet. It is doable. Comes at a cost. Like Andrew said, it goes back to budget because that side by side will be running full time instead of on an as need basis, which means I'm putting someone in that all the time. And that side by side also takes care of our parks, the alleys in our hamlets, our cemeteries, our gravel pits, administration, and the shop.
There you're.
It's just I think part of the discussion on that is depending on what our residents would like. If they've had brushing along that property and they want to spray, we haven't even talked to residents, would they be willing to pay for that piece of spraying when we're doing it to maintain that fence line, to maintain that brush coming back up against the road over the years? Because we've certainly seen where we haven't been able to spray and things, how that brush reestablishes itself pretty quickly. So I think this is all open for discussion for us to look at, to the fact of, you know, if I'd had mine cleared out and I knew that the county was going to keep the ditch clear and they would spray mine, I would pay to have mine sprayed. You know, if it's a fair price when they're going down the road for the price of chemical or what it is. So I think there's a lot of our landowners would look at it that way also. So that's something I do think as these subjects come up, it's definitely open for more communication. And in my opinion, it's just to get us talking more at these meetings and is there other options?
Moving on then, or what are we doing? I don't know. But
Every month. I think he's good to have. I don't know if we need him every month. Maybe we check into do the best time.
At the time of making this memo, we were under the understanding it was $100 for a 20-minute presentation. It may cost us $250 for a 20-minute presentation. So I received a text from him. Was that on the weekend, Ryan? I think.
Saturday evening.
So I don't know what he's actually going to charge us. We got to keep that in mind.
Well, if that's up to you. We could bring that back.
Mr. Chairman, right now, I think we need to give administration some direction because I'm thinking they're kind of drifting in the wind here with all the items that are here.
With you up there.
So I would like you to give them some direction on what needs to be done going forward with all the 5 items that we have here. Right now, we've talked about them, but we haven't given them any directions. You're just letting them drift in the wind, and that's not fair to administration.
That was my follow-up, was I was going to start going through point by point. What do you want to do? Tell me to stop talking, keep going, whatever. You know,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we do not have a pre-rep meeting unless the chair wants to have a quick, short agenda update, but I don't think it needs to be an actual meeting.
Okay, sounds good. That's basically what we meet for, 12 minutes. I think.
You have to realize this isn't for this particular, I mean, we're only 6 or 8 months away from a new administration. The next one may want to start billing for it. That's their gig, but right now I don't think we're.
I agree. I don't think you should bill.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
It's all right to have a pre-meeting or
As the chair, when I was chair of the MPC, I would come in and talk to the gals and the individuals at the time.
it up before so you have time to put it on agendas and stuff. But there's a lot of stuff on there today, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be dealt with. And Quentin and these guys, they're doing a good enough job. They just gotta have a little direction to help them out and get it done. So that's fine. No, I won't. No, I'm not charging for it. So, yeah, we got about 10 minutes.
I made a motion, Mr. Chairman,
Made a motion to what?
that we do not have a formal meeting.
A meeting before, but it's all right to have anything. Well, then I don't care. Yeah, sure. Okay, call for the vote then. Or you
Yeah, I made the motion.
made a motion, so I have to have a vote.
I just have a question.
Have a question? Go ahead.
Just your motion's just on that. What about?
Not one. We've got 5 items to,
Okay.
we have to give administration some direction.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that we receive for information with follow-up for the map showing each gravel pit, being that we bring it to the next meeting for any questions, concerns that this board may have for the pits and the history of the pits going forward. I think we need to have a regular update on this. It looks like it's a good place to do the updates, and then we can from there move it on to.
Well, they're the ones doing all the work, Shane,
So,
to get it in shape to get it reclaimed. Oh, I went the wrong way here. Where'd I go? Okay, now back here.
Come to council.
unless we make the recommendation going forward, I'll be honest, I personally would like to do a little bit of more research on these and just see where we're at on it. And if there's something that the administration finds that is out of the list that we've got, that this needs to be brought to our attention, we'll bring it to this board. They'll bring it to this board, and then we'll bring
It goes to council afterwards.
Right now, I don't think there's anything that is screaming at us, but come spring, there may be something that comes screaming at us.
And that there's a lot of information missing.
Okay, so send in an email and ask those requests to the Ag Service Board, guys.
That's on all from A to E.
Motion, James?
I am so.
Keeps on the agenda so it doesn't get lost. Perfect. Anybody else? All in favor? Carried.
But I like to receive the spraying list for, just receive it for information. We've got it. And it was a good update, but we've received it for information.
Evan? That the spray that you're spraying, unless is that what it is? Oh, yeah, it's, yeah. So you didn't move that though, did you?
I received it for information. That's my motion.
All in favor? Carried.
And to amend the hold harmless agreement,
Well, the whole harmless,
that needs to be brought back to council. And we need to have that discussion in some strategic planning if we want to put that into a service agreement or what it needs to be brought back. So
to be dealt with.
More of a review versus a,
and I think that can be done at this board. So I'd like to have, like to make the motion that we ask administration to bring back maybe some of what the charges would be, what a service fee would look like if we were going to spray the first 10 feet of, or whatever, maybe do 5 foot increments. Maybe somebody wants 15 feet, somebody wants 20 feet, but it would be a service fee.
Wants 5 feet, keep it off the fence.
Bring it back with a service fee. So, okay.
I can answer that now. It's $140 an hour plus chemical.
Okay, bring it back so that we can have that discussion in paperwork, if you would, Mr. Thank you. At the Ag Service Board, yep.
there, you know, that needs to be looked at though too, because if you're driving down the road spraying the ditch already and you can spray that much further, what does it work in? It works into chemical.
Then we can have that discussion at another meeting. Absolutely.
On it, stuff like that. Just to get this, just to get the ball rolling. We're not gonna make these set in stone decisions today. Thank you. Okay,
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
to, your question is?
Motion for
Motion.
that the administration bring back some service fees to the next meeting for the hold, and how the hold harmless would work for service fees.
Information,
No, not received for information. I'm making a motion that administration brings back a service fee schedule and what it looks like with the hold harmless agreement going forward, and what the costs were. Mr. Clark has said that we need to look at the costs, and I think,
you had your hand up or you just playing with your, oh, okay.
Is ready to.
All in favor? Carried. Good, moving on.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that do we have any budget right now, Ryan, for presentations?
For delegation presentations, we did not budget specifically for that, no.
Is there anywhere that we could find some money for that? How much funding would you say that we would be able to find, Mr.?
We include a speaker at every event, every meeting, I should say. We're at $100, that'd be $1,200. So I'm sure we can find $1,200 there.
Motion that we have
Up to $1,200?
a speaker, not at every meeting, but as
Funds.
seen fit by administration, for a yearly presentation of $1,200. Does that work, Andrew? Can I make that?
I would, the word he used at the end there was just a little off. It'd say a yearly presentation. I would say just set an annual presentation budget for delegations to the board of $1,200.
There you go. Does that make sense to everybody? So we're not blowing the budget, but we are getting a presentation if we have to budget.
Favor? Carried. Moving on. Provincial moisture update, I think we already got that, did we not?
Yes, we did from Barry. So these information items, they came straight from the province. The province puts together these maps. We received this, and I received this as part of being on the Drought and Excessive Moisture Advisory Committee. And that's just kind of a outline showing what happened last year. And so we started off the year wet, we ended the year dry. And if I can find my map, you can see that just with the way these maps look over time. So October 22nd to January 29th, and this is on page 23. That's our 90-day average temperature. So we had a fairly warm winter with not a lot of moisture. Obviously that changed a little bit in February. And our snowpacks were down. We're pretty low in Stetler County, not as low as some other areas. That's on page 24. And again, that has changed in February. Our 180-day precipitation accumulations relative to the long-term normal, so that's from August to February. In Stetler County, in the south half of Stetler County and central Alberta, it's fairly dry. Whereas the 365 days shows that we're fairly wet. And so what that's showing is that early in the spring, we received a ton of moisture and we were able to coast on that throughout the year. And we're not in that period anymore. And so piggybacking on what Barry said, unless we get some moisture here in the spring, we could be in for some dry conditions. Any other questions on that?
Else got anything? Nope.
Make the motion, receive for information.
Went by him? Whizzed by him. Well, there's a bunch of hullabaloo going on, I guess. Okay, we'll go back to the financial statement there first, Wayne. Wayne makes a motion. All in favor? Carried. Now we're gonna go, now James, go ahead.
I'll make the motion. Receive for information the
Moisture. In favor? Carried. Next meeting is March.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one quick question. And there was an individual that sent me an email about needles and syringes and what farmers are doing with it. And I said that I would bring it to this board and just ask the question. I did send an email, but it got lost in the weeds, I guess. So what does everybody here do typically when you inject your animals? Are you just throwing your needles and syringes in the garbage? Full disclosure, you're not being held against anything here. I'm just
Gonna say, nobody's gonna jump out and say where they went.
Unfortunately, I do. She asked me what my protocol was on it, and I said, to be honest, I reuse every one. No, up to the point that we had a whole bunch of dirty injections.
In that little thing.
Do you have one, Dave? I don't know. Does anybody have a Sharpie container at home?
We have where we put them, yes. And then we get rid of them.
Okay. What did you guys do at the feedlot when you worked at the feedlot? Did you guys have a Sharpie container and was it disposed of properly in a hazard situation? It was put into we had an old, the large mayo containers. We'd fill that up when it was full. Start the burning barrel, dump it in. Okay, so you did at least put it in the burning barrel. What do you do with yours, Larry?
Typically would end up in the garbage.
And so would that be the garbage you take to the landfill? Yeah, same for the most part for me too. The odd time it'll hit the burn barrel, but.
And typically, like most of the medicines I give, if you're doing any major vaccinations, it's with your reusable gun, but.
No, and that's.
Or the needles and the syringes.
The pig sticker. Now they've come out with those other ones, so it is just the needle. Ryan, what do you do?
Yeah, sharp spin, but ultimately goes to the trash or burn barrel.
So it's not an actual sharp spin, it's just a homemade sharp spin? Yeah. You
Self, so
it was just a question, and they were talking about maybe something that should be an Alberta concentration. The Alberta government looks at it because as farm people, we are scrutinized more and more daily about what and how our practices are taken care of. And she's in the pig industry, and she was doing it part of a situation with her clients that they service it's a vet that does it. And she was just asked me if I knew. So I said I'd bring it up.
Most of it ends up in a tin container and put in the garbage.
So I sent an email to Ryan about it, and maybe I don't know if there's, ask the other ag service boards if there's something they're doing. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Maybe we need to look at it. If it is something going forward, may be something that we put a resolution forward that the Alberta government look at doing something on a provincial wide basis to,
Ryan will look into that in the next meeting. Ed Wayne.
There guidelines on a proper disposal method? If there is anything, if there is a program, maybe there's already a program out there. Ask the other ag service guys, see what's up there. So.
Ed Wayne.
Question, I guess, to administration. Do they, what do we do with grain bags, rolled up grain bags? Anything in the,
We put needles in them and then we shoot.
Right, Quentin.
With COVID, we didn't roll any bags because of the whole contact with the farmer, because we go with the machine. So it's close contacts. We haven't rolled any bags yet.
what about the people who have rolled bags on their premises? Does the county have anything, any idea what they would do with that, or
There's no. First one is Merlin's Plastics, and we're still waiting on a formal agreement to be signed with them because Clean Farms is working with Merlin's to get their agreement first, and then we would work with our low boy and organize 34 to 46 bales be hauled to Hazard. However often we'd have to have stockpile sites on the waste management lands is where I would prefer to have them. The other option is to look into the Bagshaw facility, Bashaw facility, which I believe is under Merlin Plastics contracts. I think it's still. They haven't mentioned, Merlin's Plastics hasn't mentioned that to us because they're right in our back door. We could go with a flat deck with 20 bales at any time. It's a 35-minute trip, right?
so
Where's this guy supposed to go with these 6 bales that he has?
well, 6 or 10 or by the end of that,
Whatever he's got. That's what Wayne wants to know.
So
20 rolled up rolls there. So the, in this part of the country, at least, I guess from here north, they would have to go to Edinburgh to the,
you take them directly to Bashaw?
no, can't take them directly to Bashaw. But I was just wondering if you could, but you could take them directly to Merlin at, down here at Hazard.
I'm waiting on that agreement.
You know, once,
That's the idea. But that's where other counties are going, is Hazard with Merlin Plastics. I'm hoping that maybe Merlin Plastics says, hey, there's also this guy that we work with that organizations like the county can take there. I don't want to take the bags that he has rolled because when I take those bags, I have to sign off saying that
They're clean.
I haven't seen them rolled. I don't know how clean they are.
I don't know what's in them for garbage.
That's the same with the 2 guys down south. There's a 108 colony and one fella just outside of Big Valley that have bags rolled already. They want me to take them and then distribute them with our loads. I didn't see them get rolled. I might make $40 a ton. I don't know.
That only makes sense.
An affidavit saying that they're clean to this standard.
You had your question answered there.
Answer it?
I think we need to get out of here. Last adjournment.
We'll move to adjourn this meeting.
All in favor? Out of here.